Well, hello everyone. My name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. It's also just another Mimic Monday, so let's get to that right now. Every Just Another Mimic Monday, I reach deep into that box of teeth and produce a homebrew mimic for all of you for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. They're sometimes a little bit silly, but often pretty horrific, and today's one really rings true in the horrific sense, and that is the Censer Mimic. Pleasant smoke fills the temple, blanketing over a gore-smeared altar and throwing the cultists into a trance. This was the right time to strike, take out the priests that had corrupted the town and bring this evil to an end. And something else waited in the smoke, or rather produced it. As soon as your party breathed in the gas with ill intent in their hearts, the parishioners snapped out of their haze and into a murderous frenzy. You managed to drive your blade into the priest's back, but the censer he carried whipped around and bit your face, because the fight's not over yet. Polyps of the very deadly idolatrous mimic, which you can also find at boxofteeth.blogspot.com, the Censer mimics also use religion to their advantage. The smoke that they produce lulls the unwary into a stupor and changes the religion that they follow. They still technically worship the same deity, but no matter what that deity is, all of their rituals become a bloody affair so they can better feed this mimic. The same smoke can just also suss out those with ill intent towards the mimic as soon as it enters those folks' lungs and directs the throng to do in the disbelievers. Some Censer mimics choose to remain big fish in a small pond at the little temples that they're at, kind of like a lazy cat growing fat because of an overindulgent owner. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the Censer Mimic statistics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The Censer Mimic is a challenge rating 3 tiny monstrosity that is neutral evil. It technically has the religion skill, but it's only at a +0 because it's not very smart like most other mimics. It does also have damage resistance to necrotic and radiant, as they tend to be holy things or unholy things that get thrown around damage-wise. Like any other mimic, it does have shape changer, adhesive, false appearance, and grappler that can only change into a censer. Speaking of censer and words like it, we have censure smoke, which the mimic can produce when it's in object form. Creatures that begin their turn within the smoke or enter it for the first time that are not hostile towards the mimic, so oftentimes don't know it's there, have to succeed on a wisdom save or become enraptured by the mimic for the next hour. If they fail to save by 5 or more, they're instead enraptured for the next 24 hours. An enraptured creature is charmed by the mimic and also will do everything it can to defend it from hostile creatures. If a creature that is hostile towards the mimic or its minions enters the smoke or encounters it instead, has to succeed on a wisdom save or be censured instead, which basically means it's affected by the Bane spell for the next minute. Both the effects end early if the mimic is slain. On top of that, it does have fanaticism, so all enraptured creatures within 30 feet of the mimic, whether it's in object form or not, basically gain pack tactics, so they have the ability to get advantage on attacks if their target is also within 5 feet of one of their allies. In addition, creatures that are censured take an additional 1d6 damage from the attacks of the enraptured, which is really why the mimic becomes deadly, because it doesn't come by itself. It's got a lot of people with maybe pitchforks and torches that can hit a little bit better and do a little bit more damage. It has a really minor pseudopod and a really minor bite attack. Because it's small and wee and that's not really how it does damage to people, it gets people to do it for them. It does have a reaction of flail, however, so if a creature that is holding the mimic succeeds on a melee attack against a creature within 5 feet, the mimic may also use its reaction to make a bite attack against that creature. I do have to say that was a little bit harder to film because of how close Censer and censured are. There's also the origin of this mimic is just that kind of play on words. It's one of those words that I often mispronounce one way or the other when I'm talking about it. I'd love to hear how you would use the Censer mimic in your own game. You can find it, hundreds of other mimics, and hundreds more horror-themed monsters, all for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, that are all perfectly free at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the non-Dungeons & Dragons role-playing projects that I have, or the horror fiction that I write that includes Grease Paint right here, it's got a killer clown. There you go. It's the first one in a series, and book 2 will be out later this summer, so stay tuned. You can always go to www.zacharyoshea.com. As always, I appreciate your time and your attention, and I hope you have a great week ahead of you.